An Existential Christmas. 1. Christmas is a time of dying and a time of rebirth, not immediate, but gestatory, a time of loss and return, a time of waiting and fulfillment, a time when, having learned, we forget, a time when, having forgotten, we remember. The solstice is something we increasingly have seen before. Its return layers new and old significance. We interleave joy, dread, nostalgia, pile hopes and disappointments in contrasting primary shades, overeat, feeding ghosts. Early we could not sleep, hope sparkling against this season of death. Associated tones made ancient connections with forced smiles. We had not yet lost, had only just learned fear, and joy unhinged us. Our descent to wisdom folded with care as we learned after the first few times to skirt the dread, to think along perimeters, as winter taught us to smile. The blending of ancient customs, as the harvest shrivels, still goes on with dour confidence. Despising our lineage, we find smiles under corks and cans. Voices loud amid the rumble in our ears. Silence is all around. An arbitrary celebration we affirm outwards, as inwards we slide, perceiving endings under the cheer. Evergreen is somehow a lie, a different kind of life, not ours. Baubles brighten against the dark vigor. Another contradiction, another improbability to heap on the strata only memory can resolve. Grudging recollection, skirting dread, or unbidden eruption of old faces and places, lit too brightly, recalled in stasis. To laud symbols like kings, to venerate memories as things, looking from inside our faces to inside our heads. In a blur, there are circles and triangles, spheres and cones, simplicities for blunted senses smoothed by dread. Dread is the season, loss is the season, anticipated loss, remembered loss. Our gate hung with familiar trophies through which we pass together, emblematic of our lone gates, a nexus of friendship and solitude. Light and shade, white and grey, no place for black, but in every interstice, in every space between every star. We measured the periods of our world. We saw the sky repeat. We saw the sun dip and rise. We weaved the sky into our hopes. Folding hope and understanding, as we always do, we find ourselves unusually at now, sandwiched between knowledge and hope, looking forward and back. Our flow is interrupted by our thought. Otherwise, we slide into time, become time, are absorbed by time. Time is what we celebrate, the thing that we are not. There is our contrast. There is our hope. We ape our jailer, but cannot appease. Green is the hope, the alien hope, decorated with improbabilities. The Procrustean tree looks so peaceful. 2. Awake as a child, rise in wonder, a grateful convalescent. A quiet summer afternoon. The usual noises are taking a nap. I'm alone in my parents' bedroom. I stand, am weak. When I rise, it usually feels cooler. The sun streams through the windows. A yellow marvel, not yet a cliché. There are the 3 ash trees, burdened with glory. There now the faint distant sounds, also a humming in my ears. I was sick enough to worry my mother. My body feels like a new thing. Dust motes rise, define the light that eases in, that bounces from my hand with explosive brightness as I make a sudden shadow. It's not the first time I've been ill, and not the first time I've been cause for worry. And yet, it's the only time. It's when I'm new. It's when I know. 3. Before the folding began, there were already piles. Orderly, unreflective strata arranged by date. Events were unique. Then the Christmases started. At first, they promoted strange secrecy from my incomprehensible parents. Eventually we, my sister and I, came to anticipate gifts as our joyful rite. Mysteries piled into socks and boxes. The association with particular smells continued. Ginger cordial, port, buttery shortbread, mincemeat pies. The same for other senses. Particular music, no other season had its own tunes, and particular artifacts. For some reason, it was appropriate to cover a little tree with strings of coloured electric lights, to decorate it with fragile coloured objects, and to pile elaborately wrapped gifts at its foot. The house seemed warmer than usual. No other season had such a concentration of consistency. Only the most garish tokens of religion were part of our celebration. Angels were usually pretty young girls with white wings. The only difference between them and fairies were the wings, insect-like on fairies, like those of a white pigeon in the angelic case. There was a rumour of Santa Claus as the source of all these toys and other wonders, while it was also obvious, especially in the case of things marvellously and patiently crafted by my father, that this was all the parents' doing. Yet the two mutually exclusive notions coexisted quite nicely in our unreflective little minds. Each Christmas gave us a new paradox, as old association vied with growing understanding, or perhaps changing understanding. We went through a phase of seeking the religion behind it, then embracing it, then finding out how that worked and rejecting it. Each phase measured first in Christmases, and being a few Christmases long. And then the focus shifted to Hogmanay, the rougher, more grown-up seasonal celebration in which feats of drunkenness are performed as the entire country of Scotland becomes, briefly, one family. Eventually, both days became fused as the two stages of a week-long process, as the year sheds its old skin and the new one starts to harden. Long after that, it was the time when distant family would reunite. Then the time when distant family would at least make a long-distance phone call. Then it became the time in which my mother died, alone, neither in one year nor the other. That significance remains, but has had its bitterness lessened somewhat by this season, when the inner circle of close friends, separated for much of the year by long distances or just sheer awkwardness, come together briefly, for just a few days and as many parties, to relive old conversations, reaffirm old roles, while showing off some of our new developments.